to another episode of Curtain Call Conversations. I am joined today by Isabella Bliss, who is currently out on the tour for an evening of burlesque. How are you, Isabella?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, I'm very well, thank you. So I did have a chat to your lovely colleague Ivy Page last week, and you're in the same show. So tell me what's your role in the show, An Evening of Burlesque?
So much the same as Ivy. I have a couple of different roles. So I do 3 slots on the show. So as the burlesque kind of headliner, and then I sit on the team. I work on the social media kind of creative content, and then I also assist Ivy with her roles on the show as well. So yeah, a few different bits and pieces, but it's really great to be part of the team and support everybody to make the show great, really.
Sure, and you do sort of like a big act in a martini glass,
I
which
do.
sounds incredible. I mean, tell me about that. Well, I mean, the very first time you did it, was it nerve-wracking? I mean, how do you even start with that sort of act?
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting and terrifying at the same time. When I first got it, I was rehearsing here in the flat with it, and my
Oh,
neighbours,
wow.
if anyone could have looked through the window, they thought, "What on earth is she doing with a giant glass?" But my dad actually made it for me. So I've been doing the champagne martini glass act for over a decade now, and my dad's a metal engineer. And back in the kind of late 80s, early 90s, he used to make props for big illusionists and stunt people. So my dad kind of knew a little bit about that. And I remember I sat there one Boxing Day and I'd, been performing in burlesque. And I was like, I really want a martini glass. I really feel like it's going to be my thing.
Yeah.
And I showed my dad a picture and I was like, Dad, do you think I can make one of these? And he was like, what on earth do you want that for? So yeah, I worked on it with my dad and he made my first martini glass, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I just felt like I found my thing, and I just enjoy performing it as an act so much. It's so much fun. Every time I'm on stage and I'm splashing about in the water, literally having a great time, and I'm like, I get paid to do this. This is the
Yeah.
dream.
Yeah, I would imagine it's quite a spectacle, isn't it? I mean, I would imagine that the audience lap it up, don't they?
Yeah, because it's the kind of, I guess, the iconic thing that you'd perhaps expect to see with a burlesque show. Obviously, Dieter kind of made the martini glass famous again in the 90s. But, a champagne martini glass as a burlesque act and a concept has been around for such a long time. And it's a real kind of like iconic piece of theatre.
Yeah.
So I feel really honoured and privileged that I get to kind of hold that torch a little bit longer for burlesque performers in our industry and stuff. So, and to showcase such a wonderful spectacle. I always think the martini glass on our show is a big spectacle of an act, and it's kind of what people would expect to see on a show like ours. So I
Yeah.
feel really grateful that I get to kind of do that and bring that joy to people.
Yeah, I mean, what's the tour been like for you so far? I mean, how do you find, do you like touring to start with? I mean, some people don't, because it's away from
Yeah.
home and
It's funny because like I've been on the show for, same as Ivy, like over 10 years now, I think.
uh,
Um, and you just find your routine with it. You find your way, it's
mm,
not easy and it's not for everybody, you don't get a lot of sleep and you do a lot of miles and
yeah,
you constantly, at service stations and
yeah,
it's such a beautiful privilege and a joy also. We get to see some stunning theatres up and down the country that you'd have never known really existed unless you were on a touring show like this. And we go to communities or pockets of the country where people would never get to see a burlesque show because
yeah,
there isn't that community in their area. So I think the tour is really important in that respect. But it's just you try and manage yourself of like try and make sure you get enough sleep. I take a yoga mat everywhere with me now and try and stretch because I'm getting older and I'm like, oh, need to stretch. I have my little like tour life hacks of I get excited if there's a microwave at a service station because I can go and buy like a healthy microwave meal and heat it
yeah,
up. All of the silly random things that you kind of do to make your life a little bit easier. Like me and Ivy have our little like survival kits of things that we constantly travel with that you might need
yeah.
just to make your life a bit more comfortable. But I feel very lucky to, to be a part of such a big show that's part of burlesque history, I guess, in this country, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's doing so well out on the road. I mean, obviously, one of my reviewers came to see the show in London, which, you know, she absolutely adored it. I mean, the quality of talent on stage. I mean, she was in raptures about it. So it's always great when you're involved in that sort of show, isn't it? I mean, it's safe to say, Isabella, that you have a look of Marilyn Monroe, and I know from reading your stuff that is part of your act. I mean, you've got many acts within your canon that I've been reading about, but obviously let's have a chat about Marilyn Monroe, you know, icon. I mean, when did all that start for you?
That started maybe 8 years ago. So I was performing in burlesque and I had long blonde hair at the time, and people would say to me on stage, "Oh, you look like Marilyn when you pull that face." And I just thought they were being really nice because I was like, you know, she's a huge Hollywood icon.
Yeah.
And I told one of my friends about it, and he was like, "Oh, you should do Marilyn. It'll be like a great thing." But I couldn't sing. I had a terrible fear of singing. Was
Wow.
never a speaking act. I was only ever a burlesque act.
Right.
My friend did this really funny drunk impression of Marilyn, and I thought, a great idea to do it as a surprise for his birthday, because everybody knows I can't sing. So, I phoned up my friend that's a vocal coach, called Dr. Voice. He was Sam Smith's vocal coach, and I said, "Oh, you keep telling me you can get anyone to sing." I was like, "I am terrible. Like, you're gonna have your work cut out, but I really want to do it as a joke for our friend's birthday." So I spent 6 months in intense vocal coaching lessons,
Oh, wow.
and I already loved Marilyn, but it was a really good opportunity to go and rewatch all of her movies and, you know, really do your research and listen to all of her interviews and stuff. And
Yeah.
kind of took it a little bit too far for something that was a bit of a joke for a birthday. But when I did it, it was almost like I found a new part of me that I didn't know existed. And I was so grateful to almost be able to unlock that. And so I wrote a little bit of comedy for the performance, and I did it at my friend's birthday, and everybody was like, "You should really do that. Like, it works well."
Yeah.
And so I kept getting asked to do it. It grew from there, kind of as I guess, a happy accident. And I started to do more and more of it on burlesque shows, and then do more lookalike work and tribute work. And then in 2017, I kind of really wanted to challenge myself, and I wrote a show called One Night with Marilyn, because I really wanted her to come alive as a character and not just be this sort of two-dimensional image of, like, she has this very like intense sex symbol icon that people establish her as, but then also whenever people write plays or do stories about her, it's always this really dramatic, negative, focused on particular aspects of her life that are over dramatized. And there was nothing that really celebrated her as a singing, comedic, talented actress, and all of the wonderful things that she did with her life. So One Night with Marilyn became that of like an evening with her. And I talk about all of her fun things that she did in her life, and about, you know, when she set up her own production company, and when she stood up for Ella Fitzgerald against racism. And it's all entwined with the songs from the movie, and comedy and lightheartedness. I thought that was a really beautiful kind of tribute to her.
Yeah. I mean, she is so iconic. I mean, I was reading in your bio that you were flown out to Dubai to sing Happy Birthday to an Arabian prince. I mean, wow. I mean, what was that like?
It's so surreal sometimes when I get to do some of these jobs and gigs where I'm playing her, because it's so strange, because you kind of like, you know, I'm under no illusion that I am Marilyn Monroe, and I feel so blessed that I get to play her. But it's sort of almost like you have this weird experience when you're doing a lookalike or a job like that, where you're singing Happy Birthday as her for somebody, of people are really seeing her and that experience, and you're the sort of person on the inside going, wow, this was the effect, and is still the effect that she has on people now. Is a testament, you know, to, you know, she just blows my mind, really. But I'm very lucky that it's taken me on so many wonderful adventures like that, you know. And I've been out to I went out to Morocco last year and did a gig with a Winston Churchill lookalike.
Oh, wow.
Like the most, I think it was at the most top hotel in the world, like 2 years on a row. I've never been to such a luxurious hotel in my life.
Yeah.
Probably will never go again. Um,
Those are the sorts of gigs that you want.
yeah, definitely. So I'm very fortunate that it's taken me on all of these wonderful experiences, but also it actually does mean something to me that I get to keep her memory and her legacy alive for people in their own way, I guess.
Sure. I mean, as I said there, you have a lot of sort of acts within your act, including one that I thought was quite interesting, The Little Mermaid, that you do, which is a comedic look at The Little Mermaid. So tell us about that character.
Yeah, so I think from doing Marilyn, I sort of learned that I actually really like the comedy and the play, and I've always had that kind of cheeky little humor, funny bone.
Yeah.
And I love Disney. I grew up on Disney. Like I'd sing Disney songs all the time, much to the annoyance of everybody around me. And I love The Little Mermaid, but I kind of got it in my head one day. I was like, I started singing this like alternative version of The Little Mermaid, and I was like, oh, that's just funny because it's so opposite, because Disney is so pure and so innocent, and the lyrics that I'd written for this other song was, and I hope I'm all right to say this, but the things that she found were various sex toys and stuff, and the reason she wanted legs was because she wanted to go to sex parties, and then like the two opposites of that, Disney is so pure and so innocent, and this was so opposite. But even in the way that the act is delivered, although the character is talking and saying about these things of like, dildos and butt plugs, she also doesn't know what they are entirely either. So it's kind of like the double humor. Hopefully Disney won't tell me off for it. I really kind of enjoyed that character play. And I will say, I think a lot of I guess sometimes that inspiration comes, one of my really dear friends, a lady called Abigail Collins, fantastic cabaret performer and a really great performer in terms of she creates these characters that she plays with these songs and these personalities. And I think perhaps like she does inspire me a lot to sort of create characters like the naughty little mermaid that just tickles me so much. Just doing that when I get the chance.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds hilarious, and I think Disney sometimes it's all very sort of twee and stuff, and so to have a different version of it, sometimes I think it's welcome, isn't it? Certainly for adults, anyway. So when did performing start for you? I mean, was it always cabaret that you were interested in? Do you dance and sing as a child or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, excuse me, I'm still getting over this cough. I kind of like maybe didn't take the traditional route of some other performers. Like I didn't go to musical theatre school. I'm not classically dance trained.
Yeah.
Sense of like, and I guess when I got into burlesque at one point, there was very much this attitude of like, burlesque isn't for you people if you're not trained,
Yeah.
But I did. When I was very little, I used to be like a carnival queen. You had the little and you'd sit on the floats and you'd wave. And part of the evening ceremonies, you'd have to like make your own choreographed curtsy that you do to the court that you were visiting, and you could get little like awards for it and trophies.
Yeah.
And then I went on and did majorettes, which I really loved.
Okay.
And the pom poms.
Yeah.
I did that. Then I did some belly dancing for a few years because I met a lady that taught. And I really enjoyed that, the kind of real connection with your body that you get from belly dancing. It's very primal, that movement, that, just is something so wonderful about studying that. So I did that for a few years. I learned to pole dance for fun because one of my friends went to some classes.
Yeah.
We used to have a girls' night on a Thursday where she'd have a pole in her dining room and we'd have a glasses of wine and they'd be teaching me the moves that they learned.
Yeah.
So that was really good fun. And then I did actually end up being a stripper, a real, a stripper.
Yeah.
And it's quite taboo, but I worked in that industry for a long time, and actually I think I learned a lot of skills as a dancer. and how you connect with your audience.
Mm.
It was really, you know, Mama Joking, you know, British burlesque icon and legend in this country. I loved Jo when I met Jo, because when I started performing in burlesque, because I'd come from being a stripper, and at the time it was very frowned upon. It was like, oh, burlesque isn't for you people, you know, you
Yeah.
strippers, that
Mm.
we were somehow not good enough. And I would spend a lot of time trying to hide the way that I would dance or move, to try and be like, I'm not, you know, a stripper, I'm a proper dancer.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I met Jo King, wonderful teacher, icon, legend. I loved Mama Jo so much. And I did a gig of her, and she pulled me to one side and she was like, I can tell, like, you're a stripper, aren't you? And I was like mortified, as if I just found out. And she was like, darling, she was like, embrace it. She said it's the one of the parts that makes you the performer that you are. She said, because you know how to connect with your audience, you understand sensuality, you understand what it means to be a sexy woman, and embrace that confidence in your own skin, because you've worked in an industry that is a huge focal point. So once I kind of met Jo and worked with Jo a little bit, and kind of got over that of like, I need to stop worrying about what other people think of me, and just use those skills and talents and bring that into my performance, and also somewhat champion and be a voice that, you know, people have this idea of what they think a stripper is, versus the reality. And so I kind of gradually came out more out of working as a club stripper, and became more of a burlesque showgirl stripper. But still taking my clothes. My mum sometimes goes, will you just find a way of making a living that doesn't involve taking your clothes off? And I'm like, I can't help what I'm good at.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, if that's your thing, then that's your thing. I mean, I was also reading about that you teach goddess workshops. I mean, these sound incredible, especially sort of you mentor the people in the trans community, which is so important. So tell us a bit about that and how that started.
So that kind of comes around from, like, I think because I come from an industry where I've worked, like I say, in striptease, I work with women that are so confident in themselves, and so will not take any crap from anybody. And they really, because you kind of have to be a bit hard in that job. And then when I've met other women, and I kind of started teaching a little bit more in burlesque and body confidence, and I started to realize how many women didn't feel comfortable in their own skin, and couldn't kind of sit with themselves and accept their body for how it was, and all of the wonderful things that it does for you. So I started to develop this kind of goddess program, which really gets to, like, rather than me just coming in and teaching you a pretty dance routine of like, you're gonna, you know, learn this piece of choreography and your life's going to be fixed. It was more for me that I want to empower women and give them the tools and the techniques to feel confident in their own skin. And so in the workshop, we do a lot of, like, you know, guided meditations. We look at how we talk to ourselves, how we address our connection with our body, how we kind of release that inner sexuality and sensuality that is kind of, what I say, is like your goddess power. You know, it's within each and every one of us to kind of own, like, women are just incredible. Like, we are capable of doing so many amazing things. I mean, the fact that we can grow a human if we want to in 9 months, and then just get on with life and look after that human and work, and, you know, women have great careers. We are so capable of so many things. And in this workshop, it's just about getting women to be comfortable in their own skin and feel that connection with yourself. And I think once you really find that connection with yourself and the comfortableness of being in your own skin and just being able to kind of sashay around naked and not really care, kind of all of the other problems go away, because you're just like, well, you know, this is me and I'm happy, you know. It's that. So it's really, I really enjoy working with these women and bringing them out of themselves and getting them to kind of connect with themselves sensually and sexually, and expressing that, and not being afraid to hold space as a woman, because I think that's really important. Like, as women, we're not always taught, you know, we're told to be polite or not have opinions, or so it's about encouraging women to stand up for themselves and hold their own space. But then also working with the transgender community, when I first got asked, I was really like, well, what can I do?
Yeah.
And I work with a company called Big Sisters, which is a beautiful company. And the concept is you literally are a big sister.
Mm.
And so, as you imagine, for people that are maybe perhaps going through the process of transgender or whatever step they're at in that process, because what I've learned is it's a very broad spectrum of being somebody that they can ask questions to, that you can show them things, that you can encourage them and support them.
Mm.
And so I teach some more like femininity and softness in movement, and just connecting again with that energy, I guess, for those people. So that's a real it's been a real blessing, and an honor. Like, I get really tearful when I work with somebody. I'm like, you can see the change when I think you work and you teach and you mentor with people, to see that change in somebody and them to really step into their own light and their own sense of self and the person that they're always meant to be, and that you're just there kind of holding their hand and helping them on that journey. You're kind of like, you're all excited. I'm like, yes, go you.
I mean, it's a privilege, isn't it, really, to be involved in someone's life and to change it, as you say, for the better. I would imagine it's such a huge privilege.
Yeah,
So
I love
wonderful.
to do
Well,
that.
I mean, you've empowered me, I have to say. It's great. It's lovely to, women championing other women, I think doesn't happen enough, does it? So to hear you say all that, that's really empowered me. So thank you for that.
Oh, yeah.
So as I say, you're out an evening of burlesque. It's a big old tour. So you've got lots and lots of different locations. You can check out the dates for this tour. I shall pop them on the next slide. And thank you so much for the chat, Isabella. It's been really lovely, and wishing you the best with the rest of the tour.
Thank you. We're launching another show next year as well. If I can just add on.
Tell us about that. Yeah, please do.
It's not official. Well, it is official. We've not published it yet. So this is an exclusive. So my One Night with Marilyn show is actually going to go out onto a theatre tour next year.
Oh, amazing.
So come in an evening with Marilyn, and we will launch it as a UK theatre tour. So how I'm going to manage both, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
You're a busy bee, certainly. So yeah, come back and let's have another chat when you're out on the road with that one. That'd be lovely.
thank you so much for
All
having
right,
me.
take care.
Take care.